Hi everyone. I have to start off this year with explaining to a number of churches and nonprofit corporations, including 501c3s, why I'm not supporting majority of the nonprofit corporations. You see, the law requires certain nonprofit corporations, especially 501c3s, to provide public inspection of exemption applications, annual returns, and political organization reporting forms. Now, I've had a problem getting public record information from a number of institutions. Now, I put it upon myself not to contact the Secretary of State and start a mess. I just no longer do any business with them. And now I'm getting ready to say why. And that's because after requesting public information of their organization, I was not provided that information. Now, usually 30 days is supposed to be a good time to, give them to provide that information. Or you can allow them to come into your office and inspect those records. And if you require a copy of them, they can make that copy in the office and charge you whatever the going rate for making copies. But they are to provide you that information within a reasonable amount of time. Now, sometimes people think that because they're a nonprofit corporation and they're exempt from taxes and all of that stuff, they probably are, but there's still forms they have to fill out every year. And those forms are public information. Now, it's mandatory for 501c3s to do these things, but other institutions that are filed as nonprofit don't have to do it. And churches fall in that category, most of the churches. We did a research on churches that were 501c3 about 20-some years back, and very few of them were 501c3s. Churches don't want to do that because they have to provide information. But when the government decided they were going to work with churches, and they asked churches to, they gave them all kind of leeway. If you're not a 501c3, go on and fill out the forms. They encourage them to do, what they were supposed to do in order to receive this money. Some did it, some didn't. And some that did get themselves with the status of 501c3 decided to not continue to keep that high status and continue to do what they're doing. And a lot of churches did that as well. Now, I'm not going to ask any other nonprofit corporations for their public information, but the people that I train will be. And I'll be, listening to what they're saying, and if they've asked it properly and they never did get in any of the forms, well, it's up to them on what they want to do. What I'll do is talk about the penalties a little bit when they don't give you that information. Like I said, they're supposed to give you information about, let me give all that, exemption application, annual returns, and public organizations reporting forms. Okay, if you are in a political a political organization, or you and you have to fill out forms for that. They want that too. So all I say is, if someone asks you for your public information, I suggest you do it. Now, what I want to do now is I want to talk about the penalties. There are actual penalties associated with you not giving up that public information. Especially right now with everything going on, is what your political affiliations are. Now, the penalties, I'll talk a little bit about that. The penalty for failure to allow public inspection on annual returns is $20 for each day the failure continues. The maximum penalty on all persons for failure, including anyone return, is $10,000. Okay? Now, what they're saying is that people individually can be charged with that. If the person was asked to find out and get public information, and there was more than one person that was asked by someone, they could be penalized individually. The penalty for failure to allow public inspection on exemption applications is $20 for each day. The failure continues. The same thing with your, your exempt applications and all that, and it can go up. The penalty for failure to allow public inspection on a return or exemption application is $5,000 for each return or application. The penalty also applies to a willful failure to provide copies. Okay? The penalty for failure to allow public inspection of a political organization's Section 527 notice, Form 8871, is $20 for each day the failure continues. And the penalty for failure to allow public inspection on Section 527 organizations, contributions and expenditures, report Form 8872, is $20 for each day the failure continues. The maximum penalty on all persons for failure, I want y'all to hear this, involving any one report is $10,000. Now, you can mess around with your nonprofit corporation and you are considered a board member, whatever, somebody powerful in there, and if you were asked personally or in writing for this information, and everybody might be involved, especially if it was in writing and certified writing, asking for this information, I suggest you get it to them. Now, normally when you're requested information, 30 days is usually how they look at things. 30 days. Yeah. 30 days is usually good. But sometimes they're less than that. So depending on what the circumstances are, you need to know what the law says about the days to responding to anything legally. Because if you don't respond timely, you can be penalized for it. So now I think I've explained the best way I could on the reason why I'm not associated with nonprofit corporations anymore, because all of them that I requested in writing, I never got anything. Never got anything. Now, the first time I mentioned this on airs when I was on Soul Beat, and I was talking about how churches didn't provide hardly any information to their members. But I also explained that you could be a member of a church, but you don't have any power. It's up to you to find out if you have any power. Even if you're on the board, it depends on what the bylaw says on who has the power. It may not be the board. It may be you or someone else. Now, in most cases, the board has the power, which means that they may listen to your vote if they have a voting situation or whatever, but the board makes the final decision. Now, if the membership doesn't agree with what the board does, then they could strike. The first time in my life ever seeing a strike with signs and everything in front of a church. And I'm coming to find out there's a whole bunch of stuff going on in that church. Possibly even some pedophilism, pedophilism, pedophiles, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, you're supposed to get out there and do that, but you did that because you had no power. And that church may have had a little taste of money that needed to, in order for that church to live, they need to have a group of people that's going to do it the right way. Well, I don't know what happened to that. I stopped it. The signs went down and all that. I don't know what happened to it. I just know that I didn't want to be associated with that church even before I got to it on my list, talking about the, public records. Because I went down a list. I had, and that's sad. We can't even touch our churches. Now, that's the reason why I'm saying that they probably are going up higher than 72%. If they do, I think the Lord will tell me, and I'll tell you. For right now, I'm dealing with the mathematics that was already given to me by the Lord. 72% of you churches are going to hell too. So, right now, people, we're going to have to think about what we're doing in all aspects of life, including businesses, whether profit or non-profit. Well, I'll get back to that a little bit later on some of the things that non-profits should be thinking about. Knowing is not enough, we must apply. Willing is not enough, we must do. Until we meet again. I love you.